And hello, movie lovers, and welcome to the show. For tonight's podcast episode, I have Beth with me from Made for TV Movie Club. Say hello to everyone, Beth.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks for having me again, too, John.
You're welcome. It's always a great to actually have you on the show for us
Oh,
to talk
thank
about
you.
80s movies. And, this is actually one of our favorite 80s movies here that we're going to be talking about. Brandy
Yeah,
will be joining us shortly and everything, too.
awesome.
And, uh, matter of fact, she's coming in right now. So,
Better late than
exactly.
never.
So, but yeah, this is her and our favorite 80s movies, a matter of fact. And like I said, I think that this is actually probably John Hughes's probably maybe underrated film in a sense. Maybe not everybody's favorite. Pretty in Pink might not be everyone's favorite. I know this is actually Brandy's favorite John Hughes movie.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, 16 Candles is a close second, but that's.
But yeah, 16 Candles is also another one of hers. That's actually one of her favorites as well.
Yeah,
And
I agree. I agree with you, Brandy. I like 16 Candles, but I actually like Pretty in Pink better. It's it's it, it's not my very favorite. John and I were just talking about this. My very favorite is Some Kind of Wonderful, which was Eric Stoltz and Leah Thompson and Mary Stuart Masterson, but it's similar to Pretty in Pink.
definitely close to it whenever it comes down to Pretty in Pink. And also, too, I want to actually say this though. Whenever you look at the opening for this, my favorite thing is whenever it opens up into this one scene, you actually have the father. He's kind of you don't know where exactly the plot line is actually going to be going with the father or anything like that. But
No.
that, once you get a sense of what the father is like, he becomes a likable character because he actually
Yeah.
supports his daughter on what she wants to do, and then she's also taking care of him. So you're not
Yeah.
sure if he's a drunkard or what's going on when he's getting first introduced into the film or anything like that. But he cares about his daughter. He loves his daughter. It has a different tone than 16 Candles because of the fact that you have the love and connection of the father and
Yes.
things like that,
There's
which is
definitely a
something that I really
different yeah, there's a definitely a different relationship. And I think that the character in 16 Candles had a good relationship with her dad, but I think there's a different closer relationship in Pretty in Pink. And I think that's what, like you were saying, I think the dad has an alcohol problem, or it appears that way. They don't really outright say it. And he can't hold a job, but they have a real love for one another. And I think a lot of it is because they were both abandoned by the wife, the mother, Andy's mother, which is a really sad tone in the movie, I think.
I think so too. I think that leaves a lot of layers to actually unfold, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, when you look at it,
Yeah.
because of the fact that there is sadness with the father and things like that, which is something that I really liked about
Yeah.
that whole entire thing. It gives it a lot more of a depth to that character and who he is.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I didn't really think much about the dad when I first watched the movie because he is the dad and I was I was a Molly Ringwald fan. I was her age. I didn't really care about the adults in the movies, but Casey and I on my podcast, the Made for TV Movie Club, we did a movie called Flatbed Annie and Sweetie Pie. It actually has Annie Potts and Harry Dean Stanton, who plays the dad, and Annie Potts plays Iona in Pretty in Pink. And it's funny because they're both comic actors in the other movie, and you can see how good they are just having watched both movies.
Definitely, and it, I actually like the fact that you actually have Molly Ringwald. She's passionate about what she's doing. She
Yeah,
wants to become a designer for clothes, which is kind of ironic because Annie Potts is actually in this movie and she played in Designing Women years later on.
that's true. That's
So
true.
I find that kind of ironic. You actually have a character that likes designing clothes, and then you have Annie Potts who works in the record store alongside Molly Ringwald. And I thought the appearance with her was really good. The chemistry is right on point. It's everything
Yeah.
that you wanted to be in an 80s movie, to be honest with you. This film is just fantastically well done, perfectly well crafted when you look at it and everything too. Ducky, I really like Ducky. Ducky
Oh,
actually
he's
reminds
just
me of
yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
He's
He's
the favorite
really
character of the movie.
Me too.
yeah. He's really just, I mean, I'll have to say that he's probably one of the best known 80s characters. Like if people say, "Oh, Ducky," everybody knows who he is. You know,
Right.
'cause he's that, I guess what's the word I'm thinking of? Charismatic. He's very charismatic.
Mhm. He's
That's
very
what I love.
charismatic and protective of his friends.
Yes.
And that is something that is, I feel like that's missing in today's world, though, too, where you have people that don't care about their friends as much as they used to, or anything like that. But I like how he cares about her and cares about her well-being.
Yeah.
And I also like
May I
that.
admire you again today?
Exactly.
What gets me is that he's actually really in love with her. I mean, like crazy about her. And to her, he's just her friend.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And we've all been through that situation and everything as guys and stuff like that, where we're friends with the opposite sex, and then that person is not into us like we think that they are, and then all of a sudden there's this new guy that comes into their world and totally wrecks it, and we can become jealous, and everything is like, who's going to win out of these two alpha males and everything. But then you actually have to think about it. You have to put your own self aside for for your friend and their happiness and everything. I think that's where this lies with Ducky. And everything, you have the realization that this is not going to happen the way he wants it to happen.
No,
So
and
therefore,
and he really suffered too. I mean, one of my
Mhm.
favorite scenes is when he's sitting on top of the newspaper boxes, because back in the 80s, people read newspapers and they had those boxes where you had, I don't know, 10 or 15 papers, and he's sitting there and it's raining and there's that mural, and it's just such a sad moment, but it's beautiful too, you know, but you can see how much he's suffering because he knows that he may not end up getting her. Although I think he thinks he is, because he has that conversation with his dad, which just cracks me up.
Exactly what I was thinking about the moment when he sits down and has that big talk with her dad.
Yeah. And he's drinking his juice box.
Because, I'm going to marry her, and you know what? Well, do you know how she feels about you? No, I haven't worked out though. Right now, we're gonna look at houses. We're looking at all the home front stuff first, and then later on, we're gonna go ahead and try and move in later on with different things. And also, too, my other favorite line is the one that you noticed tonight, though, too, was the part where he goes, "This is why I don't drink and drive. I just ride a bike."
Yes, I ride my bike. That was a great one. Or then like later on when he kisses Iona and she's like, what did she say? What was her line about her thighs? And she's like,
right.
He must be
thighs are on fire.
Yeah, he must be practicing on melons.
Because the way he kissed, because I know I'm old enough to be his mother, but he must be practicing on his mother because my thighs grew.
That was so funny. And then when he finally gets into the nightclub after not having ever gotten in there, and now I don't know if you guys noticed that the bouncer was Andrew Dice Clay, who was a very famous comedian, and I don't know what happened. I think he got banned from SNL for life, and I think it's because he just was an obnoxious jerk, but he was really a big star at that time. And
wasn't he in the Ford Fairlane thing from back then? Ford Fairlane, if I remember right.
Oh yeah, that's him. That's right. Yeah. And he's tried to make some comebacks over the years, and I don't think I don't know. That's why that's why I always say I don't know if you even know who he is, but he was a big comedian at the time. But it's funny, they had great banter outside the club, him and Ducky, when he's like, why don't you ever let me in? And and tells her that Andy's his girlfriend, and then he asks Andy when she comes out, why do you go in there if you know your boyfriend can't come? And he's like, no, and he like tries to hide it.
Exactly. And then I like how he's saying, well, if she's your girlfriend, then why does she keep bringing you to the bar?
Yes, exactly.
Because don't you think that there should be a hint that she's just not that into you, basically?
And one thing I noticed that I didn't notice the first 100 times I've seen this movie was that the band that's playing are the Rave Ups, and if you remember in 16 Candles, that's who she had written on her notebook.
Right.
I never made that connection before, and I don't know why.
I've kind of noticed that though as a little bit of a foreshadowing from past, like a shared universe, kind of with John Hughes. Whenever you
Yeah,
look at it like that,
for real.
but
I'm
did you notice
surprised
that
there
one?
isn't. I'm trying
Never
to
something
think.
I would have never noticed, and I've seen
Yeah.
that movie probably. I can't even tell you how many times. So.
Yeah, I've seen it so many times. I was really surprised when I noticed it. I was like, "Wait a minute, that's the Rave Ups." Wait a minute, that's from 16 Candles, and I think, yeah, I don't think that. I'm trying to think if the Rave Ups soundtrack, anything from them were in Ferris Bueller, but I don't remember offhand.
I don't think so. I think
I don't think so either.
with Ferris Bueller, they used other original stuff. Like we
Yeah.
talked about it before, they used other stuff aside from that. From
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
But
The music in this movie, this had to be one of the best soundtracks of the 80s in
yes.
this movie. It had
And-
In Excess and The Cure and Echo and the Bunnymen, I think, is on there. Obviously, the Psychedelic Furs, Pretty in Pink. Joe Jackson, I think, is on there. Suzanne Vega. I'm telling you this because I loved every single track, and I had a little tape player, and I think I wore it out playing it in my dad's car.
Oh wow! Yeah, you definitely got some use out of that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna record the songs off the radio.
Yeah.
On the box.
I just remember I took my babysitting money and I went to Target and I bought my little soundtrack and I just played it. I don't even know if I ever took it out of the car for like a year. I love that soundtrack.
The soundtrack is amazing. And,
yeah,
we're talking about that in a few minutes, though, too. Speaking of music, every character has their own theme. Like, you have Ducky, who has basically this wild kind of theme that comes into it, this little rock and roll stylish kind of music. Then you have, of course, Molly Ringwald's character. She has this more of a romantic, laid back kind of vibe kind of music. And then you also have this bluesy, maybe kind of typed music for the rich dude that's actually into her as well, that I really like.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that, but that's true.
Because I noticed how the music changes, and this is my first time noticing it after my fourth or fifth time watching this. Because, like I said, I've seen it before. I always catch it in the middle every single time inside the record store scene. It never feels when this movie's on satellite.
The one where when he dances in, yeah. I read when I was doing some research that was supposed to be a Rolling Stones tune, but they couldn't get the rights to it, which is how I think it's Otis Redding, correct? I can't remember.
It's an Otis Redding song.
Yeah, and I didn't.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was great, and he did a great job with the lip syncing and the dance. That's one of my favorite parts of that movie. It's so good, and he's like dancing up against the record stacks, and I just thought it was so good.
It definitely is. And not only that, but this movie also had a budget only of $9 million. And also, too, at the box office, made $40.5 million.
That's crazy. That's so much money. And I don't know if they expected it to not do well. I'm not sure. Because I noticed that they released it in February, and then Ferris Bueller came out in June of that same year. I think it was 1986, correct?
I believe so. I believe that they both came out during close to the same time in the same year.
Yeah, it's 1986. And then Jeannie, the friend, she actually passed away before the movie came out. Right. The one who plays the friend who's smoking in the gym.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's I actually didn't know that until like 2 years ago, because I was like, oh, I wonder what else she's done. And I went and looked it up on IMDb or whatever, and I saw that she had passed away. And I did find her obituary. I think it was in the New York Times. But yeah, that's really sad because she probably was 18 or 19 at the time. She couldn't have been more than 20. And they didn't say what she passed away from. So it's really sad. She was also in a movie called Little Darlings, which was one of my favorite movies too. That was a great movie.
One of my favorite scenes was when they all in the gym.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
And she's like, that scene starts. Isn't she smoking like right when they first start that scene? Right. And then she's like, put that out. It's like, how would you not smell that?
Exactly. And then also too, the part where a friend goes in there, flips off the popular girl, and everything, and I hope that her boobs actually fall off. That made me laugh
She-
like nonstop.
And then when the gym teacher asked her,
As Andy, yeah,
no,
No.
when she asked the other girl,
right.
What she had to say, and then she repeated it out loud, what she had mouthed to the other girl.
I said, I hope they shrivel up and fall off.
Right. No filter, nothing at all. Exactly how she actually said it. It was perfect.
It was so funny and it was so good because I think that she, even though she had a fairly small part, made a pretty big impression on that movie because she was so mean. But her character was so consistent throughout because she was still a bitch at the end of the movie.
She was. There was no characterization towards the end of it where she changes.
No.
That's who she is. And basically in high school, people don't change until like after high school.
Right.
So
Today
they're
we call
actually-
people like her Karen, though. She probably
Right.
is a Karen.
Probably.
She was
I know
so
one of my
mean.
other favorite scenes is when Ducky basically floors what's the rich kid.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
The
yeah.
douchebag.
James
The
Spader.
ball bag.
Yeah, I forgot his name in the movie. James Spader's character. You mean, and
Yeah.
then when he pulls down the poster for
Yep.
the prom king and queen, I love that movie too. And then what I really like is like they're fighting, and then all of a sudden people kind of just show up and they're like, whoosh, like rush over there to like separate them. You're right. That's a really good scene. And then he runs off and he pulls that thing down, and it's just like, a big F you to the world kind of thing. Because I think at that point everything was just not going well for him, for Ducky anyway.
Yeah, the character, the rich ball bag guy, is actually Stiff.
Yeah.
That was his name.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can definitely tell that he had this Miami Vice kind of vibe to him, where he's actually better than everybody else.
The
Yeah.
hair.
The hairstyle,
Yeah.
everything was Miami Vice. If you look
Yeah.
at it,
You're right. It was. And that
Right.
was kind of the look at the time too, because that was
Right.
probably Miami Vice was still on the air and a big deal at that point.
right?
Because it was 1986, so I think Miami Vice was on the air until at least 90. I can't remember
Right.
exactly.
I believe
But, yeah.
so, but
Yeah.
still, you can definitely tell this guy's a ball bag. He's definitely someone that you don't want to even come across or anything like that because of the fact that he thinks he's better than everybody else. And
Yeah.
then too, he tries to get Blaine in his head, and
Yeah.
it works. And because he's clearly into Andy
Yes.
and everything.
Yeah.
And you always have this popular person or someone that thinks somebody is actually ugly when really they're actually the problem. They're actually the ugly ones because there's
Yeah.
something about them that is ugly about themselves. So therefore they have to belittle somebody else, and also to be narcissistic towards somebody that's actually into someone to lift their own
Exactly.
self up.
Yeah, and I think the thing that really bothered him the most was that Andy could see right through him, and he's not used to that. You know
No.
what I mean? He didn't like that she knew she had his number, and she wasn't afraid to say it. And I think other people were, because he was rich and popular and therefore like and more important than other people. And I think that really showed through in the movie, but Blaine didn't see it obviously until the end. Almost the
I
very
love
end of the
part
movie.
where she's about a car and he's trying everything in his power to smooth talk her, and she's looking through him like, "Excuse me, who are you talking to?"
Yeah. Exactly.
Exactly, because she isn't buying anything that he's offering or anything like
No.
that, and she doesn't even care about him at all. And then also too, his friend comes along, and you can tell he's a different. Yeah, he's rich, but at the same time, he doesn't have that same mentality and everything. Blaine is different than Stiff because he looks at people in a different way and accepts them for who they are, versus how Blaine looks at people and everything, basically putting them into sections where it's like a clique where, you know what, I have my rich friends, that's where I'm going to be at. You cannot, anyone that's popular or below anything, they're not even welcome to my own home, into my own party, because they don't fit the bill.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they really were, everybody at that party was so rude to Andy, but it was, I think Benny was the blonde girl's name who got in trouble, and she said to shrivel up and fall. I think that was Benny. And I mean, she's so awful, and she's even worse at the party, and it's just, I don't know. Even though it was kind of funny, because what did she say that was really funny? She's like, now I can't think of it. Darn it. Ugh, jeepers creepers. But the other scene I really loved was when Blaine did that little computer thing when she was in the library.
yeah.
Oh, that was cute.
That was
It was
cool.
so cute. And then the pictures come out. And, do you know who you are? It was so cute. That's one of my favorite moments in the movie, actually.
I agree. That actually reminds me of like AOL in
Yes.
the 1980s.
Mhm.
That's in hacking in the 1980s is actually different compared to now. It just shows you the different times and everything of how fast technology ran its course from the 1980s to now. And
I will
everything.
say that creating that in the 1980s probably took like an hour just to make that. I took
Especially
a
that
computer
photo.
class. Yeah.
Especially that photo of Andy, and then all of a sudden he puts his picture on there and stuff. I'm like, how much thought process, how much stuff did they use for the effect to make that happen?
Yeah.
Because you're looking
it
at you're looking at pixelation at first, and then it comes to clear. I'm like, wow, this is better than dial-up.
Yeah. Well, and back then you would have had to like write all the code for that.
Right.
It didn't really exist. It was just starting to, I think, at that time. But if I recall, most people didn't have computers either at home.
No.
You
Nothing
know.
but office businesses and stuff like that. Were
The
the
only
only
place
ones.
we had computers was at school.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think that happened until high school.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember taking a computer class, and we actually like had to make a little snowman, and just the outline of it, and it took me like I don't know, weeks to do that. Because you have to write the code and put in the color, and if you make a mistake, it didn't work, and it's very complicated, not like it is today.
No, definitely not like today. And also too, I want to also mention this though. With the record store thing is actually one of my favorite things in the movie though, to be honest with you, because it's the most relatable thing. Because I remember being up in Boston in a store called Strawberries, but also too, we also have a T-Bone's record store up in here in Hattiesburg, and it has that 1970s kind of style, but they also have it's also a deli restaurant though too at the same time, in a coffee shop connected into the record store.
Yeah.
And it has that kind of flavor of the vinyl records, the CDs, and things like that. And that's something that I miss, is just going into there, just being geeked out at a record store and spending hours in a record store just getting records and stuff. And talking about other artists like Andy and the character that Annie Potts plays and everything. And it was just awesome to see that. And also too, I like the fact that it takes place in Chicago, because High Fidelity also takes place in Chicago, which is also one of my other favorite movies that takes place in a record store. But
John Cusack.
Did y'all notice how weird Annie Potts' style from the beginning?
I love that. I loved how much she transformed, but I loved her. She's like, what do you want? I cook for you. I clean for you. Now you want to ride to work. And then she's like, it's Walter Mondale.
How amazing she looked with the blonde wig. That's something that nobody saw coming.
I like the big bouffant wig that she had when she was dancing with her prom dress on.
I did too. I like the different hairstyles that they used for it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And also too, I feel like the hairstyles tells a story of who she is.
Yeah.
And when she starts getting matured and everything, her character starts becoming even more mature, her hairstyle starts changing, and then the scenes with Ducky and everything, that her hairstyle changes into more of a mature look, because that's the expression that she wants to give people now, opposed to her grungy BDSM punk rock look at the very beginning. And then it goes into the other 1960s style. Then it goes into the other style where she's actually becoming a lot more happier. So the hairstyle to me tells the story of who she is.
Yeah, that's true. Especially because she's in such, you don't meet the guy, but you can tell she's really in a bad relationship with him, and she hates him. And then you're right. And then at the very end, she has kind of that, suburban mom feathered with the pearls. She's wearing the fake pearls, which were a really big style at the time. So, and she had her little white Miami Vice type jacket on too. Blazers were kind of a big deal back then too, especially when you had like the white blazer with the really brightly colored shirt underneath. It was a look. We didn't complain. Although I have to say I kind of liked her punk rock look a little bit with the docs and all that stuff. She
I
was
did
kind of a
too.
badass. And then when when that kid was shoplifting and she like took the staple gun and like, you almost
Yes.
took my eye
I was only an inch away from your face. Quit crying.
out. Half an inch.
I love
She's
it though.
sassy. I love her sass. Her and Ducky, they were just such great characters. But I love Annie Potts just as an actress and everything she does. I mean, Ghostbusters. She's so good in Ghostbusters. But she's really good in this one. Yeah. I mean, John Hughes really very carefully wrote the characters in Pretty in Pink because they were all very distinct. And now not all of them had growth, but they were all really distinctive and really strong. And he was consistent with them throughout. Like they didn't change or get weaker in the sense that like the transformation of Iona was really well done.
I agree. I definitely agree with you on that. Was there anything else you wanted to mention or anything like that too?
I'm ready to talk about my favorite parts of that movie is the whole like last 15-20 minutes of the movie. So
how about that dress? What did you think, Brandy? What did you think of the dress?
The dress was something else. That's something I don't think I wouldn't have had the balls to wear. Okay.
No. I didn't love the dress. I found it kind of disappointing.
I love what Ducky had on.
Yeah, Ducky was great.
Better than anybody at that prom.
Mm-hmm. And he still had his shoes on. And but he had his little bolero tie. I don't know I can't remember what you called those. The little the jeweled tie thing. Was that a bolero? Is that what they were called? Something like that.
Yeah, that's a bolero. Yeah.
Yeah. That he looked so good, and his hair was like, whoop.
Mm-hmm.
And he has that confidence to pull it off. That's the thing about Ducky.
What tells me is the rich kid looked like somebody put him through a wet dog storm.
Mm-hmm.
He looked horrible.
He did. He really didn't look good. Like he looked unwell.
Right, because of that guilt and shame that he carried for what Blaine did to him and everything too. No, not Blaine, but what Stiff did to him.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I mean, because he wasn't even with his friends.
Right. Because if you think about it though, having that guilt and shame on you will actually put years onto your life, or if not, it'll make you ashamed of what you did to the point where you're not sleeping good at night. And that's exactly the repercussion that he got from that.
Yeah, and John Hughes, the original ending was Andy and Ducky got together. And then test audience hated it, and they changed it. And I was really disappointed because I really wanted Andy and Ducky to get together. I think
that's what you would have expected to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Right.
Yeah. And I think they were a better fit, quite frankly. Because I don't know. I mean, one thing about this movie that I don't wish about a lot of John Hughes movies, but I wish they had added some more scenes with Andy and Blaine dating, because you didn't really see them together that much. Yeah, and even in the beginning of that, he kind of said some stupid things like, "You want to hang out with your friends? Go crawl under a rock." That was just mean.
That was like a real douchebag of a thing to say.
Right.
It really was. And so I was kind of hoping that I wish they would have shown more of him being a nicer person to her or just dating more, because then they showed him in the stable. So they obviously were dating outside of that one date. But I just didn't feel like there was a total complete picture of that relationship. And I just wish there was a little more of it. But I think maybe when they filmed the movie, there didn't need to be, because the ending was supposed to be her and him and Ducky. So maybe they just didn't feel like there was a need to have more of them in it or something.
I think John was thinking, okay, well, the test audience is going to probably love it because Ducky is like the underdog.
Yeah.
So therefore, people love the story of the underdog. So
Yeah.
therefore, there's no reason to go ahead and have them on more dates because people might actually love it the way that he has it, and then it turns out to be the opposite of what he had. And who knows? Maybe they're like, "Well, you don't have enough time to film anything else. You already ran the budget to where it needed to be, so we can't go back and film it like we do with other projects. So therefore, you might
Yeah.
actually have to move on from it."
Yeah.
But for me personally, here's the thing: I would love to see Ducky and her get together, Andy. But at the same time, I feel like there's a lesson to be learned for Ducky,
Yeah.
though, is the fact that, yeah, you may not get the girl that you want, but there's going to be someone out there that will love you and will respect you. And you also
Yeah.
have to put away your differences to make someone else happy.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel like the lesson is learned for Ducky. And that's also, too, to me, it's not the cliche Hollywood thing of putting two characters that are both alike, in a sense, together. And that's
Yeah.
why I appreciate that a lot more, because of the fact it's not something that's been done before. And therefore, Ducky can actually learn from accepting the fact that her friend is happy,
Yeah.
even though he's not with her.
Yeah. And I think he loved her enough that he would have been okay with that. I just was heartbroken because I just really liked Ducky. Especially when I was that age. I loved him and I was like, yeah, I didn't really care that much about Blaine as far as the movie went. And I still say I wish they would have gotten together because they did have a lot of chemistry. So it would have been believable. I thought they had a lot of chemistry.
So did I. The only thing I really liked, and this is the only thing I can say I liked about Blaine, is when he called Stiff on his bullcrap at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
figures out that the only reason that he's so gung-ho about him not being with her is because he couldn't get her.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's jealousy.
That's exactly it.
It's the alpha male ego where it's like, oh, she's into him. He can. It's about okay, so she's into him. It's about what you can have, and because that person has her and everything, that person is also jealous because of something that he can't have, and because he can't have her, he's going to try and make Blaine's life a living hell because of that.
Yes.
And it's two alpha males trying to get the same girl in a sense, even though Blaine already has her. Stiff wants her even more.
Yeah, and I think that Blaine also I think he also realized at the end that, hey, wait, this is like the end of school, high school. I don't need to even talk to these people again cuz school's probably over in the next week or two. So there was that too, and I think that's also gave Blaine the courage to stand up to him because he's like doesn't have to deal with him anymore.
Right, exactly. It's like, okay, I'm at my 12th grade year of high school. I don't have to put up with him anymore.
Yeah.
After this, it's over with. No one's even going to remember what I did in high school or anything.
Exactly.
I can move on from this.
Yeah. And he did, and I think his intentions were good, but it's just too bad that he kind of did that to Andy because it wasn't really very kind of him to do that, like ignoring her, ghosting. I guess today we call it ghosting, but it's still this. I mean, we just didn't have a name for it back then, but that's basically what he did. I mean, that's one of my favorite scenes too, and one of my favorite scenes in the movie because Andy's so powerful in that moment where she's like, "Just tell me, just tell me, just tell me," and I love that because she just won't let it go, and she shouldn't have.
No.
And she's so strong in that moment, just standing there, like knows that people are probably going to make fun of her. But I don't think that kind of thing bothered Andy. I don't think she cared what people thought of her, which is what I loved about Andy. She was so strong.
Yes, she's definitely a strong-willed character. She wasn't going to take no BS from anybody, even with her own father, for instance, too.
Yeah, she didn't.
I loved, to be honest with you, that scene will pull on your heartstrings.
Oh, when Dad and her are talking.
Yes, yes, and also to seeing that play out, and her saying, "Look, she's not coming back. She's not coming back." And you can tell he's depressed, even when he's talking to Ducky and everything. He just got this laid-back, chilled attitude, but at the same time has this little depressed beard going on and laid out and everything. You can tell that has this emptiness inside of him. And, and then, of course, whenever she said, "Look, you need to let her go. It's over with. She's not coming back."
Yeah.
And he goes, "I can't let her go because I'm still in love with her."
Yeah.
And to me, that was beautifully well written.
Yeah. And then,
right.
And she was like, I loved her too, but we just have to, she's not coming back. And it's such a beautiful moment really between them. And I actually think it might have been a turning point for the dad. Obviously we don't really know because the movie ends, I don't even know if he's really in it again except for when she leaves for the prom. But I think for him, no, I guess he is in it again because he did end up getting a job, but
Right.
it was good because it seemed like he was going to be on his way to being happier, or maybe he made peace with that loss.
And even though we didn't see him, but seeing that smile on his face with Andy when she's on her way to prom, that's
Yeah.
only right then and there. Whatever that demon side he was facing before Andy confronted him and everything, he's in a different mindset now. Because
Yeah.
here's the thing: 95% or 98% of acting is no dialogue, and you can tell with just the eyes and the expression alone that that's
Yeah.
exactly what was going through his head
Yeah.
at that moment.
Yeah. And I think that, I think you're right. And I think that in a lot of the movie, he's still sleeping in the morning because he presumably was out late, but he wasn't out that night that she went to prom, which would have been a Saturday night, which I think is
Right.
telling. It means, he's not at the bar drinking, which is what I think he did a lot of.
Right.
And he wasn't because he made that change in his life that wasn't going to be what he wants to do with it anymore. So
Exactly.
I think he showed a lot of growth, which is interesting because he wasn't in a great deal of the movie.
No, but it just goes to show you the level of writing that John Hughes has.
Yeah.
Even though this is completely for a coming of age 1980s type of film with teenagers, it goes to show you he's also got something for adults though too, to
Yes.
where adults can actually relate to something and everything. Because chances is, if some kid is like 15, 14 or 15 years old, they're going to go ahead and take their parents with them to see this movie.
Yeah.
And stuff. So therefore, you have to have something to incorporate the adults on. And John wrote that specifically for the adults to have something to relate it for. And I think that's a beautiful thing to have, because you
Yeah.
need to have something, because adults go through issues too. And therefore, maybe adults can go through, you know what I'm saying? Maybe they wrote that for people to actually help with depression, helping people get through a rough time in their lives, to where maybe they can relate to this film in some
Yeah.
type of way for adults as well. I think it's a
Yeah.
great thing.
I think this movie is really one of the movies where you really see some growth in his writing. It's not just, like when you look at sort of Vacation and you look at 16 Candles, those are sort of slapstick comedies. They're great movies. But then you see Ferris Bueller and it's funny, but it's also, there's a lot of drama. There's a lot of humanity in it. And then you have movies like Pretty in Pink, and then you have Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which I think came out after these came out.
Yeah.
And that one is so complex, the writing, and that one's so beautiful, but you can see it in Pretty in Pink, the complexity and what he's trying to do with his characters.
Yes.
And like you said, the adults.
Right. I know you wanted to say something though.
Well, and as far as like trying to give adults something to relate to, was it just me, or did you notice a lot of those high schoolers weren't really dressed like you would see a normal high schooler during the 80s? A lot of them were dressed a little too grown up for high school in that sense of it.
Yeah, I mean, in my high school, it was all gunny sack, so everybody had the same dress, just a different color, which was kind of like it had a tighter bodice, but it had kind of a poofy bottom. It looked like kind of like a ball dress. And you're right, the girls in this movie were not wearing that, but I think maybe that's because they were wearing $1,000 designer dresses, and maybe they were just more sophisticated. But you're right, they were dressed like they were going to
Right.
I don't know, like to the Emmys or the Oscars or something.
Well, it's also that rich lifestyle though too, if you think about it.
I remember when we were in high school, it was either stonewashed or tight rolled jeans, stuff like that. Because
Yeah.
I went to a public school where we didn't have uniforms, so
Yeah, I didn't either, but I don't know. I think that you're right. I think that they were very sophisticated. And I think that maybe that's why Andy's prom dress stood out, is to not, because it was not as there just wasn't a lot to it. That's the weird thing. It just looked like actually looked
Right,
kind of like
man.
a dress she would have worn to school, because she was pretty she was pretty daring with her clothing. I mean, she designed everything, and I loved every single outfit she wore in that movie except that dress.
That dress was.
It just wasn't really anything. I don't know like who designed it and why, but it's just such a different departure from the rest of the movie.
It definitely is. It's very bland, and I'm not
Yes.
a guy that will.
Yeah.
I'm not one to
because
actually talk about dresses, but it was like a tablecloth kind of dress, like you would get off of a tablecloth.
Well, the one thing
Yeah.
I liked about her throughout the movie is that even though she wasn't rich like them, she dressed with such class.
Yes. I just loved I think like the way she always put together like it looked like she was wearing dresses, but a lot of them were two pieces, but with the vests. I loved that. And then she always had those little booties on that were so cute. She just really knew how to put everything together. And in fact, she inspired me and my friends to like go down to the thrift stores and, buy some secondhand clothes. And that really did become a thing after this movie to go down and like try and, find really cool stuff like she had.
My youngest
So-
daughter does that. She'll go to Goodwill and buy really vintage looking outfits and put them together herself and style it how she likes.
Yeah, I love that. I wish that I had that kind of eye for fashion, but I don't. That's why I'm wearing my Psychedelic First t-shirt, because that's what I like. I actually thought about dressing like kind of doing some kind of 80s hair and all that, and I'm like, I don't even have Aquanet. I can't get my hair that high today. There's no way. I don't have the right product for that.
But this movie is just fantastic. I
Mhm.
like I said, this movie is not one of those movies I watch over and over again, over 100 times or whatever. I catch it whenever I can on TV and things like that. This, like I said, my fourth time seeing it. But the record store scene with Ducky makes me laugh. There's also the other scene where he actually pulls the smoke alarm.
Yes.
And he goes, "That's it. I'm not coming back to the store anymore. That's it. I had enough of this. The security sucks. Everything about the store just sucks." And then also too, another scene that makes me laugh with Ducky, and he has so much damn confidence and everything that makes me laugh when he gets shoved into the girls' room. He goes, "So this is what the girls' room looks like. The restroom looks like. We don't have these. Look at this. You guys have doors. You guys
You have a candy machine?
You have a candy machine here. You know what? You know what? I want to talk to your principal.
It was
ahead."
hilarious. That wasn't a candy machine. If you're
I know.
I know what it is. I know what it was.
That's the beauty of it, because he didn't know what it was. It was so. You're right. It's so cute because he's just like brings on the sass, because I guess he just didn't know what else to do in that moment.
Right.
I'll wait.
And then in the last part line, he says, "I'm saying right here till the principal comes."
Come on,
And he's
go ahead.
like-
Call him. I'm right here.
I'll wait.
I'll wait. Which was perfect.
I went- and then-
After he's standing there, like when he watches her walk off to go catch him, and he's just kind of sitting there looking a little sad. He sees that pretty girl looking at him. He looks at her, he says, "Me?"
Or what about when he's studying with Andy, and she's like, "Do you want something to drink?" He's like, "Beer, juice box, whatever you got." And then she goes down to the kitchen and he starts singing, and she hears him in the vent. He's singing
And I'm
"Love Is
wondering-
Real."
Right. I'm wondering too, like, how much of the conversation does she actually hear since it's been in the vent? So she actually knows how he feels.
Yeah.
Everything too. Because
I
it's
love
all
her
been
so
figured out.
much. And then did he put the hat on the dog?
No,
and then
he
he
put it
puts
on himself
On
dancing
himself.
around the room.
What did he
Yeah.
do with the dog? Was he just
He
singing
was
to the
singing.
dog? Singing to
He
the
was just
dog.
singing and talking to the dog.
I
And the dog
love
is
her
over there
so
just
much.
like moaning and everything and crying.
It's just so funny when she like closes the fridge and she looks up and you can hear her hearing him. It's so cute. He's so genuine, And she's like, "Ducky, we need more than the Warsaw Pact was a pact in Warsaw." When they're trying to do homework. It's so funny. I just loved that.
It
I
is.
loved her bedroom too. She had like style everywhere. I mean, she really knew how to decorate and dress and all of those things. I just love
Most
that.
definitely. it described her character perfectly with the design of her bedroom.
I agree.
And her passion for designing is basically her drive, and I like that.
Yeah, I noticed though there was a definite starkness to Ducky's room because he had like nothing on the walls. If you remember, there was that one scene. I think there were 2 times that they showed him in what I'm assuming was his bedroom when he's kind of sitting on the floor and it's just everything's white. And I think that maybe he drew on the walls or something, and he's just sitting there and he's really upset. And it's just kind of sad because then you kind of wonder like really what his life might be like outside of her.
Right. It does make you wonder because we're not introduced into Ducky's world or his father or what kind of relationship he has with his family.
Yeah.
So basically all he has is Andy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why and then Iona's like, he's not riding his bike past your house anymore.
And I like how he's over there with the Chinese guy and he's just looking, goes, hey, how are you? Just looking.
Yeah, I mean, that's another interesting thing. You can tell, like, in those scenes, like when he's riding his bike, when you're down by Iona's apartment, that's not Chicago at all. You can totally tell that was filmed in LA.
Yes,
because
that had an LA vibe to it.
Yeah, even though when the movie opens, you know it's in the Chicago area because if you notice that dump truck says Elgin, and that's a suburb of Chicago. Obviously, I don't even think that was filmed there. I think they just painted Elgin on that dump truck or the garbage truck. I think it was. But you can tell it wasn't filmed in Chicago at all.
Right, because I can tell with Chicago landscaping. We talked about this with the Ferris Bueller one with Cameron, with the car, with the house layout and everything. That's very LA, Los Angeles kind of vibe to it.
Yeah. So. And when you see the outside of tracks, the record store, you can also, I mean, I guess it could have been Chicago-ish, but it really didn't feel like it. And also they were in Elgin. They weren't in a big city. They were in a suburb. So they wouldn't have really had anything like that. But I read that building still exists, except now it's a deli or something. It's not a record store anymore. But I think it was really a record store at one point.
It definitely has that layout of a record store, and I love the vibe it had at that time.
Yeah.
But I think that's everything as far as our thoughts. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, that was it for me.
Okay, so that's everything.
Wait, I got a question though. Who do you guys wish that Andy would have ended up with?
Ducky, of course.
Okay, good.
I was voting.
That's the right answer.
All right. So my question for you though, Beth, is where can everybody follow you at if people want to follow you and all that other good stuff?
I am the Made for TV Movie Club podcast. You can find me on Twitter at TV Movie Club Pod 1. On Insta, we're at made_for_TV_movie_club. Facebook, Made for TV Movie Club podcast, and we're on all the apps for the if you want to listen to the podcast, all the apps. I think we're on all of them. You can just give it a Google and find us. Where if they're listening to you on whatever app you're on, we're on. I'm sure. So
all right. And with that being said, guys, if you guys want to, go on ahead and follow me on Facebook underneath Movie Lovers, TV Lovers Night over there. Underneath the same brand name on Instagram, and of course on Pinterest as well. And then, of course, if you guys want to go ahead and get an audio only episode of what we do here at Movie Lovers Night, you guys can get that on all major platforms that you guys get your podcast from. But also, too, go to Good Pods. Good Pods is a great place if you're wanting fan interactions with us and things like that. You can tell us what you like, what you didn't like. If you're also into podcasting yourself, that's actually a good way to let other listeners know what you have going on, if they liked your episode or what they didn't like about your episode, so that way you can actually develop who you are as a podcaster and help yourself out that way. Another thing too is we actually are doing a little charity event through Cincy, and all the proceeds go over to the victims and everything over at Louisiana. And because of Hurricane Ida. So we are actually doing that with the Cincy's and stuff like that. So all the proceeds go through the Red Cross and it goes through a good cause. So go ahead, get yourself a Cincy and help us out there. And of course, if you guys want to, go ahead and donate to Movie Lovers Unite. And how do you do that? You just go to GoFundMe.com/Movie Lovers Podcast, and that's how you can go ahead and donate a couple of dollars to us. But if you want to watch me embarrass myself on TikTok, all you have to do is follow me underneath Movie Lovers Unit, and it's 001, I believe. So you guys can go ahead and follow me on TikTok. I do some promotional stuff from time to time over there. I will not do a crate challenge or any type of challenges, just PR stuff. And then, of course, you guys can go on ahead and follow me on Twitter at Movie Lovers Unit. And of course, if you want to be on the show and would like to also sponsor us, all you do is just reach out to me at movieloversunite@gmail.com. And of course, we're also part of the indie film community right now, and that's actually at the Holly Shorts Film Festival. So, and matter of fact, Beth is going to be helping me review a couple of movies and pretty soon. So that's going to be exciting. And I'm going to be interviewing some more guests coming up this week. So and matter of fact, tomorrow night, I'm going to be interviewing a guest at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific Time for his movie, There You Are, which is actually an animated film that was like 6 minutes long. Alex and I did a review for that. You can actually catch that on the YouTube channel, or you can go ahead and check it out on the audio only podcast. But that's everywhere that you can reach me at it, guys. And I do appreciate you, Beth, for taking the time out of your night.
Thanks for having me again.
You're welcome. Anytime. You are always welcome on the show. I do appreciate it. And always, until next time, guys, it's been real. It's been fun. I can't wait to do this again. And bye-bye.